Hi, this is Karen White of Divine Time Astrology, and today I have Channing Ayers with me again. And this time we're talking about eclipse astrology. Now, you know from previous videos that I've done with Nishi that I was not really very convinced that eclipse astrology works, mostly because it's something that happens every 6 months. And the aspects they can last 6 months or even longer. And so for me, I'm kind of like, I would prefer it to be something a bit more precise. Well, Channing is also very much into eclipse astrology, and she has some rather convincing uh, charts to show us about it. So this is what she's doing here today. She's basically convincing me that eclipse astrology actually works. So hi, Channing.
Hi, Karen.
Thank you for being here with me today and talking about this subject. So you are going to talk to us about Meghan and Harry, Prince Harry, right? And
Yeah. Well,
that big
we've been
thing that's
talking.
happening.
We just did some videos, and we were talking a little bit about this ongoing transit that's been happening in the sign of Capricorn. And so one of the things that I was thinking about is how this aspect of Saturn and Pluto and K2 and Jupiter and Capricorn might impact the world. And of course, my first thought was government, which apparently there's a lot going on in the government.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard a news article about how Harry and Meghan wanted to move to Canada, and they're tired of being in the spotlight, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, oh, I wonder if that eclipse is affecting them. I wonder if that's the other way that this sign of Capricorn is getting manifested in world events through these eclipses that are happening. And I popped open Meghan's and Harry's charts, and I realized they both are getting impacted by these eclipses.
Wow.
And so I just thought that was really interesting. And maybe we could share a little bit about it.
Yeah, let's see their charts.
Okay, well, let me pull up. So first I have, yeah, all right. Can we see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is Meghan Markle's birth chart, according to what we have online. And so what we see in her chart, this is kind of interesting. She has a Cancer ascendant, and on her descendant over here, her 7th house, she has Capricorn. Well, of course, if we look at, so here we have Meghan Markle's chart. And we can see that she has a Cancer ascendant over here, where we just had an eclipse on January 10th. And then we can also see over here, Capricorn is her 7th house, which is her D7. And if we pull the transits up, we can see in the little box here, this is all of this. Now, Mercury just moved out of here the other day, but there's been quite the lineup over here, and these eclipses have been happening in these degrees. Now, for her chart, that eclipse happened there was an eclipse in July that happened right at 11 degrees. So it was right on top of her Mars in her 7th house. So we can see the crisis starting to come up with the eclipse happening on top of that Mars and, stimulating something that needs to get taken care of. And you can see that Mars in her 1st house, even though it's in the sign of Cancer where it's not as strong, it's still Mars, and it's still going to have an impact in that 1st house. So here she is needing to take care of the eclipses, or the eclipse is triggering this need to take care of a crisis or something.
Now, does it also affect the fact that it rules her 4th and her 10th? So as the wife of Harry, she has certain duties?
I do think so. Yeah, I do. It's ruling the 5th cusp, if you count from
the 5th. You're right. Okay.
Yeah, which is appropriate because she has a child, right? She has a new baby, and
right.
The 10th house as well bringing on more Rahu energy to that position. The thing is that Rahu energy is so interesting. It's the weird stuff. It's the stuff you aren't expecting. It's the stuff that's not seen. It's the stuff that comes out of the blue. So a lot of times I'll hear different, flashes of the news or a headline or something, and I'll think, ooh, that's a real Rahu thing. That's a real Rahu type energy. So, the energy of, if you go back, and I kind of remember this, I wasn't as keeping up on current events back in 1997, but I remember when Diana passed, and when Princess Di passed, and she was chased by the paparazzi and ended up in a terrible car accident. Well, Rahu, that's a very Rahu type of, weird Saturn Rahu type of thing that could affect a person, just really mysterious. I think there was alcohol involved. I think their driver was drunk. And so that's sort of a Rahu type of thing. And we could look at that too. That was quite some time ago. But for Meghan right now, she's having these eclipses. And then there was an eclipse, earlier, that was 20 degrees. So, here's her ascendant at 24 degrees, and the eclipse is happening from her first house, and all of this K2 Saturn energy is saying no more public. The seventh house is the public as well as our partnerships, but it's kind of, closing that down. And you can see, here she is, her ascendant going into the fourth house with Saturn, nice exalted Saturn, but it's Saturn moon nonetheless. And even her Jupiter here, and all of her planets are in the first four houses. So these are all internal houses. These are all houses that are very personal, and the public houses are more on the other side of the chart, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th. Those are the houses that are going to bring you out into the world more. These are more tucked in. And so, I feel for her, because you can see here, she just really wants to stay at home. She does not want to be out in the spotlight at all. She wants to be with her child, her partner. I think her Darakarka is the moon here, and just
because
be at home.
It's different than as an actress, because as an actress, you're playing a role. You're not you. But now in this situation that she's in, it's different. Is that why you think, or do you think it's because she had a child, and the eclipses are saying,
well,
you need to withdraw from public? I mean, see, how is it different than being an actress?
Well, I mean, I think it's more of a civil servant role. Like you're flying to different countries to attend different types of events and ceremonies. The Commonwealth, they're not just, I guess, connected with the United Kingdom and England. They actually are the monarchy over Canada, Australia, New Zealand, some areas in Asia. So there's a very global connection, so that they need to show up for these events, but they are a very public figure. So we can see that with her Venus as her Atmakarka being in the sign of Mercury in the third house, that this is giving her part of her path, her career is an actress, right? Venus and Mercury in the third house. But you can also sort of see that this isn't necessarily going to last forever, and it's not necessarily her, the whole thing that's going on here in the chart. And there's definitely some things lining up for that, but I think that she's moved into a different phase. I think she's really in Jupiter phase a lot too, even though she's in Jupiter Venus. But look, Venus is in the 12th from Jupiter. When you go into a dasha where the Mahadasha is in one house and the Subdasha Lord is in the 12th house, that's bringing up 12th house energy into the chart. So there's an aspect there of her wanting to be away from the world. And you can see that here in her chart. Now, let's look at Harry's chart. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So here we have Harry's chart. Here is his ascendant in Capricorn and his seventh house in Cancer. So once again, we see this whole axis getting aspected by the eclipses. And when you see the eclipses happening in the first house and the seventh house, especially, because that's the house of self and the house of partner, I noticed that there can often be a status change or some sort of shift in the path specifically. This can also happen in the fourth and 10th house. So in the angles are really prominent places for where you see these eclipses really impacting a person's life. There's certain times.
I want to clarify that. So what you're saying is that you're more likely to experience the effects of an eclipse if it occurs in the angles of your chart or on certain like personal points like the ascendant or the Atmakaraka, the sun or the moon?
That's what I've noticed. I've noticed the eclipses taking place in the angles is kind of big deals in life. And now if it happens on top of a sensitive point, that really brings it in even a little bit more. And it also is very connected with the dasha that you're in. I've really noticed eclipses to have more impact if you're actually in a Rahu or Ketu dasha, or if you're in a moon dasha. And there's also the aspect of these eclipses. How are they impacting? How is Rahu impacting in your chart? Like, here we have Harry. He has Rahu with the moon in his chart. And this is impacting his ascendant here. And so,
and the descendant.
And he's in a Rahu dasha, right? So let's see if we can see this on the screen. Yeah, he's in Rahu, not quite in Rahu Sun yet. So he's in Rahu Venus dasha. And these eclipses have also impacted these sensitive points for him. We had that eclipse that was over here in Cancer at 11 degrees. Well, this was impacting his seventh house cusp as well. And so we can see that these dashas are not only affecting him, but they're affecting his Darakaraka, Jupiter. So this is also the impact that it's having on another person that you can see through someone's chart. And so
explain briefly what the Darakaraka is so that people know what you're talking about.
In the Jaimini system, the Jaimini gives a table of karakas, and karaka basically means manifester, or to bring into manifestation. And we have a different assignment of the Atman karaka all the way down to the Darakaraka. And so the Atman karaka is the self planet. It's the planet that has the highest degrees, and we can see the sun is Harry's Atman karaka, soul planet. And the planet that has the least degrees is considered the Darakaraka, or the planet that represents the spouse in the chart. So this is a Jaimini technique that can single out if these planets are connected with other people in the chart.
So Harry has his spouse planet in the first house, affected by the most recent eclipse.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. In the sign of Capricorn, and the axis of Capricorn and Cancer are prominent in his chart. So we can see that this eclipse is somehow impacting him and creating a shift in his life, creating a change in his life. And a lot of times you'll see the eclipses work sort of like reset buttons. They will bring an event into life, and from that point on, life has life is different after that. It has a shift to it. This can be positive, this can be negative, this can be completely neutral. It doesn't have a bias of bad or good. But a lot of the big events in life seem to, on some people's charts, be clustered around these eclipse times. Now, this can take place a couple months before, a couple months after. These eclipses that we saw happening most recently with the 11-degree Cancer eclipse happened July 2nd. And we also had this 24-degree Capricorn, which affected Meghan's chart. That was July 16th. And then December 26th, this one that we had recently, right on Christmas, basically, was at 4 degrees. So that 4-degree one really impacted his Jupiter there too. So it can take place within a couple of months. It's not necessarily going to be on the day that the eclipse happens, but this one was a particularly strong one.
It's very interesting to see how their fate as a couple is so connected.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's the way I see a lot of relationships. It's pretty fascinating. So while I was looking at their charts, one of the things I decided, I saw that Harry's moon was with Rahu. And so I was just looking a little bit at the transits that were happening when his mother passed. So his mother was Lady Diana, and there was a lot around that, but I just wanted to see if there were eclipses that took place. His mother passed August 31st, 1997, so he was 13 years old. If you look into his Varshapal, which is a whole other subject, we could actually pop in there, and that looks really interesting too, but the eclipse, there was an eclipse that happened right here at 24 degrees Pisces, and his second house cusp is at 25 degree Pisces. So an eclipse happened just a few weeks after the death of his mother on the second house cusp here, with Jupiter, the lord of it, being debilitated in the first house, also Jupiter ruling his 12th house here. So there was an aspect of this, and we can also see his 4th house lord going into the 12th. There was an aspect to this eclipse that happened. It also was affecting his sun and his Mercury over here, and his 8th house cusp. So you can see the second house, 8th house cusp axis getting triggered by the set of eclipses that work around the same time of his mother's death.
So I'm curious, what Karaka is his mother represented by?
And then it's just fascinating, though, because the eclipse itself, it wasn't on any of the planets that were necessarily highlighted in his dashas, mahadashas, so dasha, neither of them. The moon could indicate some of that challenge. The moon also being ruled by Venus, and Rahu being ruled by Venus. But it was this 8th house, second house cusp getting exactly triggered by the eclipse energy, by the power of that eclipse energy, that really showed how these eclipses can trigger these types of events. And the eclipses connected with the second house and 8th house is very strongly potentially a death transit, of somebody. So you can see that in his chart. Poor thing. It's been really, it was really, really painful. You can see how painful this is here.
Do you think that this has something to do with their desire to leave the?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. The idea of being chased around by media on a daily basis, trying to go to the grocery store, trying to get to the library, whatever it is. It's just it just doesn't fit with Meghan Markle's chart, right? Like it looks like she's willing to do some acting, like you said, some presentation, and